Order the local planning agency meeting of July 13th, 2021. Prior to starting the meeting, I'm going to ask for a moment of silence as we reflect upon the tragedy in Surfside. They are our friends, they are our neighbors, and in many cases, they're actually our relatives. So please let us have a moment of silence. Thank you. You know, it would be remiss of me also not to mention two of our neighbors in the Caribbean. Haiti, we bleed with them for the assassination of a duly elected president. And of course, in Cuba, the residents have taken to the streets in order to make their country more democratic. So again, we stand with those countries. I'm going to request that the city clerk please call roll.
Mayor Weissman.
Here.
Vice Mayor Dr. Marks.
Here.
Commissioner Evans.
Present.
Commissioner Friedland. Commissioner
She's on
Friedland.
Zoom.
Commissioner Landman.
Here.
Commissioner Narotsky.
Present.
Commissioner Shelley.
Here.
Mr. Wasson. Here. And Mr. Wolpen.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you so much. I'm going to ask Carolina Wesley to please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. She is our student intern for the summer and also a member of our youth advisory panel.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Can I please have a motion for the approval of the minutes of April 6th, 2021?
I'll motion that. I'll motion.
Made by Commissioner Narotsky, seconded by Commissioner Evans. Can I please have a roll call vote? Take your time, it's okay.
Commissioner Evans.
Yes.
Commissioner Friedland. Commissioner Landman.
Yes.
Commissioner Narotsky.
Yes.
Commissioner Shelley.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Dr. Marks.
Yes.
And Mayor Weissman.
Yes. Okay, item number 4 is a public hearing motion recommending the adoption of the following ordinance, and I'm going to request that the city attorney please read the ordinance.
Thank you, Mayor. An ordinance of the City of Aventura, Florida, amending Chapter 31, Land Development Regulations of the City Code of Ordinances by amending Section 31-145, Town Center Zoning Districts, to provide for a new zoning district, Town Center Office Park Mixed Use TC4 District, providing for severability, providing for inclusion in the code, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. Can I please have a motion recommending the adoption of the ordinance made by Commissioner Shelley, seconded by Commissioner Landman? I am going to ask our Community Development Director, Kevin Klopp, to please present the staff report.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor and City Commission. Kevin Klopp, Community Development Director. I do have a presentation. If it can be shown on the screen as I go through it, that would be helpful. Thank you. As mentioned by the City Attorney in his reading of the title, this is a request for an amendment to Section 31-145 of the Code to create a new zoning district. And are we going to be able to get that up? Are the commissioners seeing my presentation on you? Yes. Okay. All right. So,
one second. City Manager, where's our IT department?
I'll see if
there it is. There it is.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay, so as you mentioned, this is the local planning agency meeting. We will be discussing this ordinance again at the City Commission meeting. later this evening. And I have for you a picture of a code book here, because this is an amendment to the rules. This is not creating a map change. This is not talking about a specific project. And I just wanted to be clear that this is requesting a change to the rules. So the purpose of Town Center 4 regulations is a proposed district to provide for mixed uses with a significant amount of office space while also allowing residential and retail uses in a project. The origin of TC4, which is being proposed tonight, is TC3. A little louder? Okay. We practice this, but this is better when I hold it. Okay, so the origin of TC4 is TC3, which was the zoning district that was created specifically for Park Square, which has now been developed and has been very successful. TC3 requires assisted living. So there's an assisted living project, and it's in the picture on the left, that's part of Park Square. TC4, the proposed district, will not require assisted living, but instead requires a significant amount of office use. And the picture on the right is the existing office next to the pond in the Aventura Corporate Center, which is the location that did request this at the commission meeting on June 7th, commission workshop on June 17th. The proposed development at Aventura Corporate Center sparked this, but it is a staff proposal to suggest this new district. The first step of bringing the Aventura Corporate Center project to fruition is to create the rules for it. The regulations, however, could be applicable elsewhere in the city. A few unique features of the TC4 district: there will be kiosks allowed and outdoor vending if those things are within 100 feet of the pond or lake, whichever you prefer to call it, at the development, in this case Aventura Corporate Center or wherever else this might occur. Also would allow outdoor entertainment. There's a step-back requirement protecting adjacent residential, if there is adjacent residential, from the uses by stepping back any height an adequate amount from that adjacent residential. There are requirements for a plan for on-street parking, park and ride, ride sharing, bicycle storage, etc. And finally, there is a 30% open space requirement for TC4. TC3 was 20%. Between first and second reading, we're still thinking there's a few adjustments we want to make. Won't change the title of the ordinance or the impact of the ordinance, but I did want to mention them here tonight. There is an existing drive-through bank at the location where Aventura Corporate Center might use this zoning, and we would allow that to be a conforming use going forward. We would not want any more drive-throughs, but we don't want to hurt what's existing. So we'll write that into the code. We would allow health and exercise clubs as a permitted use. That is currently not contemplated, but thinking it through and talking with some folks, we thought that was a good idea. Right now, the maximum height that could be allowed administratively is very minute, 4 stories. So it's suggested that this would be increased to 10 stories. So if a project comes in and one of these locations is 10 stories or less, that could be approved administratively. Above that would still come to the city commission. And then there's a few Scrivener's errors that we would need to correct. The standards of review, so there are rules for creating rules. There are 5 standards in order to create some new rules that we have to review. All 5 of them are met. Just in general, this new code would be consistent with the comprehensive plan and the existing code. It's in the city's best interest, and it provides for orderly development. So last but not least, this is a picture of Aventura Corporate Center. You all saw the presentation back in June. Those that presented are here tonight, but since this is really about, and I put the rule book right on top of this picture, the first step is just putting the rules in place. That's the first step. Next steps would be second reading in September, and at that time, potentially you'd be hearing official applications for comprehensive future land use map changes, zoning changes, conditional use approval, site plan approval, et cetera. Those are all steps to come, but first we start by putting the rules in place. And I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let me ask the representative of the entity requesting the code amendment if they have any comments at this time. And good evening, Mr. Burkow.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Commissioners. Very briefly, Jeffrey Burkow with the law firm of Burkow, Riddell, Fernandez, Larkin, and Tapanis at 200 South Biscayne Boulevard in Miami. We're in full support of the proposed code amendment as presented by Kevin today. We've been working with Mr. Klopp and his staff during the past several months on this amendment. We are in agreement with the proposed changes that will occur between first and second reading. We agree this satisfies all of the requirements under your code. It's consistent with the comprehensive plan. It's compatible with surrounding development, and we would urge your passage of the code amendment this evening. Thank you, or on first reading. Thank you.
Thank you. And now I'm going to ask the members of the commission if they have any comments for either Mr. Burkow or Mr. Klopp. Commissioner Shelley.
Yeah, Kevin, if I may. This is based on the meeting we had at the workshop, correct?
That's correct.
So what we're proposing on these changes now will be satisfactory to the applicant that's going to be coming to us at some point, but that's not what tonight's about.
Correct.
So the question then is, if for any reason the applicant that hasn't come before us yet for this, whatever the reason, decides not to go forward with it, doesn't have it, doesn't get, whatever the reason may be, will these changes be difficult for somebody new? Is it going to enhance that whole area anyhow? How does it apply if there is no project in place at this point?
It should not be difficult for anyone else. It may be a different project, might look different. It would most likely still come before you in some way, shape, or form, unless it were 10 stories or less. And if they don't come forward, somebody may not even request the rezoning, and then it wouldn't have any meaning whatsoever.
But it would if we go ahead. I'm not against doing it, and I'm in favor of the project. However, if for any reason the project doesn't go through, is this going to be erroneous on another applicant at a later date, or would what we're doing be flexible enough to facilitate another developer?
I think it would be flexible enough, absolutely.
Okay. And the other question, do we need a comp plan change to do this ultimately?
We need a comprehensive plan map amendment for this project. To put it into our zoning code, to adopt the rules, we don't need to
I'm
change.
saying, but for that project, we would.
For that project, we would. But to put the rules in place tonight, we don't.
Okay, thank you.
Any other commissioners? Vice Mayor Dr. Linda Marks.
Also for Kevin, I have 3 questions. Why are we identifying kiosks?
Well, I would say 2 reasons. One, they are a use that has become quite popular in the urban environment that this is changing into. And our code simply does not allow them at all. So that's the first reason. So without this proposed project, we have been requested for kiosk-type allowances before and have said no. This is an opportunity to start in that direction, recognize what is happening in the industry, and put it into our code. So the second reason is they asked for it.
Okay. Would it pay for us to look at the concept of kiosks more generally as well in our city?
I think it would, but I think this is an opportunity to start.
Okay. Next question. Why do we not want to allow additional drive-throughs? Why are we only grandfathering in the one drive-through?
Great question, and this is something I'm very passionate about, I guess I'd say, as a city planner. Drive-throughs drive vehicular traffic, and they drive vehicular traffic across pedestrian areas. So it's a car that's coming in to do its business and leave again, rather than coming in to park and meander and do business on foot. So you try to limit that and encourage people to get out of their vehicles, frequent other establishments, be part of the urban walking community rather than just coming in and out in their cars. I know post-COVID, there's a lot of focus again on drive-throughs and pickup. Honestly, I think that is going to fade, but the idea of a urban walking environment is here to stay.
Okay, and then my very last question. You mentioned on-street parking. Are you talking about within the development or on 209?
I am talking about both. However, I'm not sure it's going to work on 209, but it may work at the back. 30th, I believe, is the street there, where they are proposing some townhouses to line that street and potentially have some on-street parking on that street.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have another question from Commissioner Shelley.
Yeah, just on the parking issue, obviously there's going to be parking requirements for these buildings, et cetera. Is the off-site parking or the on-street parking needed to meet some of these requirements? And maybe, Jeff, you could answer that. I know there hasn't been a traffic study done yet, but would that be applicable to the project? So in other words, obviously, if you can put 50 cars there, would that be counted towards the requirement?
If I recall correctly, they did not count on-street parking in their rough calculations of how much parking they would need. I think they could probably confirm that with a head nod. Yeah.
So this is just bonus parking then?
Roughly, they're going to provide the parking they need, yes.
Okay, I don't see anyone else on the commission wanting to ask a question, so I'm going to open this up for public comment. If there are any members of the community that wish to address the commission, come up to the microphone, state your name and address for the record, and you will have 3 minutes to provide comment. I believe you will have to be sworn in, correct? Okay. Nope, just come up, name and address. 3 minutes. Is there anyone that wants to address this issue? Seeing as there are none, I'm going to close the item for public comment and ask the clerk for a roll call vote.
Commissioner Evans?
Yes.
Commissioner Friedland?
Yes.
Commissioner Landman?
Yes.
Commissioner Narodsky?
Yes.
Commissioner Shelley?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Dr. Marks?
Yes.
And Mayor Weissman?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing this project to our city, and thank you, Mr. Klopp, for the wonderful presentation that you gave us tonight. I'm going to ask for a motion to adjourn the local planning meeting made by Commissioner Landman, seconded by Commissioner Evans. All those in favor? Any opposed? This Land Planning Agency meeting is officially adjourned. Okay, I'm calling to order the regular City Commission meeting of July 13th, 2021. It is 6:28 p.m. I'm going to ask the clerk to call roll for this meeting.
Mayor Weissman?
Here.
Vice Mayor Dr. Marks?
Here.
Commissioner Evans?
Present.
Commissioner Friedland?
Present.
Commissioner Landman?
Here.
Commissioner Narodsky?
Present.
Commissioner Shelley?
Yes.
Mr. Wasson? And Mr. Wolpen?
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Since we did the Pledge of Allegiance at the other meeting, we're not going to do it again. I'm going to ask the city manager if there are any deletions or emergency additions to the published agenda.
Not at this time, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. That brings us to our next item, which is special presentations. It's summer, and both of our principals are not here tonight, vacation time and weather and everything else, so we're going to waive the presentations by the schools, and for anyone who's interested, we will be having a governing board meeting for both of the schools next week, which takes us to our consent agenda. Yeah. Oh, special presentation. It's not on my report.
It's not on my.
I know, it's not on anyone's. It's Ron's.
Oh,
It's Mr. Wasson's.
presentation.
Good evening, everybody. The reason why we didn't have anything on the agenda, it was more of a special presentation that was supposed to be a surprise
Well, it
for the
is.
person. As the manager, I get to work with some fabulous people in Aventura, from a commission to my directors of police, public works, community development, community services, and right down to everybody that actually works for the city. And I would say that most people go above and beyond what they're asked to do every day. However, I'd like to recognize somebody that went above and beyond what was expected of them in an area that really, it really was not their area of expertise. And that person I'd like to recognize is Kimberly Merchant. And for the reason I'd like to recognize her is, as you know, we're all starting to come out of this pandemic. And there was a time where things changed day to day, and nobody really knew what was going to happen next. So as we went through the initial phases of it, and then finally vaccines came out. And I know it was very difficult to get a vaccine, but slowly but surely they started to roll out. I know in the beginning it was extremely hard for people to get an appointment to be vaccinated. It was Kimberly Merchant that, I don't know why, but she took it on her shoulders to become the Florence Nightingale of getting people vaccinations. And I would say probably in the course of the last 6-7 months, she probably got well over 2,000-3,000 people into be vaccinated where they couldn't figure out how to just get into the system. So I'd like to present her with an award, really, that means a lot to me. I know it wasn't just people in Aventura that she helped. After a while, there were people calling up from, I think, all over Florida, eventually. She had a way of getting into certain websites where if you had to get in there and at 4 o'clock in the morning, she would do it. She had a way of bouncing through firewalls. I'm not really sure. She probably has a future with the CIA, but she was able to do that. And I'd like to recognize her tonight. If she would come up, she's here with her husband, Brian, and her 2 children, Audrey and Liam. So I'd like to read this. Let me get it right. It's really Humanitarian Waters special thank you. I said, for all the residents of the city of Aventura, the city commission, the city staff and their families, and all those individuals who helped without question get vaccinated against COVID-19 during one of the most challenging and difficult times in recent history. In recognition of your dedication and going above and beyond the call of service, you literally assisted thousands of people get the help they could not find by scheduling appointments and helping persons get vaccinated. We wish to recognize you on your exceptional service and simply say thank you.
And on behalf of the commission, I thank you. The next item on our agenda is the consent agenda. I'm going to ask if any member of the commission would like to remove an item from the consent agenda. Okay, I would like to at least let people know that item B is an agreement between Aventura and Sunny Isles Beach, our 2 police departments, to provide mutual aid. And I think it's important that the public know it. That was a suggestion from Vice Mayor Dr. Linda Marks. And the rest of the consent agenda is kind of pro forma, ordinary things that we really don't need to discuss here. So can I please have a motion for approval of the items on the consent agenda, made by Vice Mayor Dr. Linda Marks? Can I have a second? Seconded by Mr. Bob Shelley, Commissioner Shelley. Can I ask the clerk for a roll call vote?
Commissioner Evans?
Yes.
Commissioner Friedland?
Yes.
Commissioner Landman?
Yes.
Commissioner Narodsky?
Yes.
Commissioner Shelley?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Dr. Marks?
Yes.
And Mayor Weissman.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. That takes us to item number 6, zoning hearings, quasi-judicial public hearings. I'm going to request that the city attorney read the procedures for the quasi-judicial hearing and request the city clerk to swear in those wishing to offer testimony on items 6A and 6B. Mr. Attorney.
Thank you, Mayor. Item 6A and 6B, as the mayor stated, is the quasi-judicial portion of the agenda. For these two items, persons who desire to offer testimony will do so under oath, and the quasi-judicial statement that is printed in the agenda is hereby incorporated into the record. Thank you.
Are you going to read it?
Ask the city clerk to first swear in the witnesses for item 6A.
That's not how we do it. Okay, so please, would you please read the item for me?
Want me to read item 6A first,
Yes,
Mayor?
please.
Thank you. Resolution of the City Commission of the City of Aventura, Florida, granting conditional use approval pursuant to Section 31-144C2I of the City Code of Ordinances to permit the building height to exceed the zoning district height limitation by 11 feet for the property located at 20955 Biscayne Boulevard, providing for conditions of approval and providing for an effective date.
Can I ask for a motion for approval of this resolution made by Commissioner Shelley, seconded by Commissioner Landman? I'm going to request Community Development Director Kevin Klopp to present the staff report. When he gets up there. When he gets it. We've done this for 7 years. Please come up, and the city clerk will swear you in. And to save time, anybody that is here to talk on 6A or 6B, if you will please stand. Anyone planning to talk on either item, please stand so we can swear you in at one time.
I need you to raise your right hand and be sworn at this time. These are for items 6A and 6B. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you.
Good evening once again. Get the microphone close again. Kevin Klopp, Community Development Director. Thank you for this opportunity to present the conditional use request related to the Central Aventura proposal. The location of the property is 20955 Biscayne Boulevard. It's on the east side of Biscayne Boulevard between Northeast 209th Street and Northeast 210th Street. Former site of a funeral home, which was recently demolished. Here's a picture before the funeral home was demolished to give you an idea of where it is. 210th Street in the foreground, Biscayne Boulevard on the right-hand side, and where the traffic signal is to the south, that is 209th Street. And as you have previously seen at commission workshops and will be presented by the applicant, this is a picture of the proposed development with 209th Street, about 210th Street, about the center of the picture, with the development to the right of it. Agenda item 6A is a conditional use request, as mentioned by the city attorney when he read the title, for 11 additional feet above the building height that is allowed by code. Code allows 120 feet, and they are requesting 131 feet. The code allows the city commission to grant such a conditional use. It is not a variance. It is simply something that you are allowed to grant additional height if you feel it is in the best interest of the city. There are 7 standards for review for a conditional use, as laid out in section 3173 of the city code. This application meets all 7. In general, the proposed conditional use is consistent with our plans and regulations, is technically adequate, and is in the best interest of the city. And I do submit for the record the staff report, which goes into detail of each of those 7 standards. And so the staff recommends the conditional use be approved, subject to the conditions listed in the staff report and any subsequent additional conditions imposed by administrative site plan approval. I would like at this time to allow you all to ask me questions if you'd like to, or have the applicant go into a more detailed presentation. And I know that's part of your process, but I wanted to allow you, Mayor, and Commission to make that decision.
Thank you. I'm going to ask the applicant if they have any comments.
I will pull up the proposal for them. Okay. My presentation stayed on the screen. Could that be switched to what's now on this? Asking for some technical assistance if we could, because what's on the screen is not what's on the podium. Are you all seeing on your computers the central Aventura?
We're seeing just what you're seeing.
No, okay. What'd I do? So this is here, but it's not displaying up there. Do I need to close out the PowerPoint?
Actually, no, it should be up there. No, you can put that at full screen and give me 1 second to display.
Okay.
That's why I don't do these things.
My apologies. We did practice this. It worked earlier.
Carolina, can you help them?
I have to call my grandson. He's very good.
He said he's going to switch it up there. I think we can close out my presentation.
Is it here?
So I have one PowerPoint up, and this is. I think if we close
Do we really need it?
Let's see. Let's exhaust all possible opportunities.
Okay.
All right. Got to present it?
Thank you. I got it from here.
Okay.
Okay, Alan, it is all yours. All you have to do is press the arrow to go to your next slide.
Not me.
Okay. I'm sorry, I did all this for nothing?
I don't press arrows at it. That young man over there, he's going to press all the buttons because I don't do buttons. I have enough trouble just standing up here and talking, so, you know, what can I say? Madam Mayor and Madam Vice Mayor, members of the commission, I am... Sorry. For the record, I am Alan Rosenthal, and I have offices at 20900 Northeast 130th Avenue, Suite 600. The reason I'm confused is because for the last 16 months, my address for practicing law was at 19557 Northeast 37th Avenue, also known as Turnberry Townhomes. But shortly, very shortly, I will be able to return to the real world and practice in the real world with the people in my office, which I really have missed. Before I go any further, I'd like to thank your development department, and in particular Joanne Carr, who has aided me and guided me with this project in its various stages since October of 2019, which is when we started. I was retained to commence working on this project with my clients and their professional staff, together with the city staff, and during that period of time, Joanne did a wonderful job helping me, and thank God for Kevin Klopp, who came in, took over the reins, and gave me some great ideas and good advice on how to get to the finish line. And I think this, hopefully, is the finish line, and maybe I'll finish. Those of you who know me know that I love what I do, and I do it because I really enjoy it. And I really enjoy bringing good projects to the city of Aventura, such as Optum, which is the first LEED platinum building built in South Florida, and you guys got it. And we now have another client who is not quite that adventurous, but he is going to build a magnificent gold LEED building that will be a wonderful addition to this city because it's going to provide some of the things that I think make this city what it is and provides for a continuation of what the city of Aventura stands for. It'll bring us 2 floors of a wonderful high-end mall that will provide some wonderful shops and restaurants. And then it will bring us a Hyatt House hotel. The Hyatt House Hotel is the finer section of the Hyatt, and they really wanted us to do 150 rooms, but there was no way in the world we could do it. And we had to convince them that what we could do was 129, which they agreed to. And so that's what we're building. We're building a Hyatt House, and when Mr. Kababi, who is my client, comes up and shows you what's on this thing over here, I am sure that you will be impressed by what's coming. I'm sure all of you have read the report that Kevin put into your packets, and it explains in detail what we're going to do and what you're going to get. And I don't want to be repetitious about that, but I just wanted to make a few comments about some of the things that have resulted in this project coming forward. When this funeral home was in existence, and it has been for over a quarter of a century, the people going to the Aventura Hospital were the subject of those who walked by it or walked across the street from it. And one day, I had an opportunity to take a good friend to the hospital who was going in for major surgery. And as we were talking on the steps, walking into the hospital, he stopped for a moment. And I'm not sure why he stopped, but he did. And he turned around, he looked to the east, and he said, "Is that a funeral home?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "Oh my God, I hope that's not where I'm going next." And from that point on, I decided that I was going to try and figure out how to get rid of that funeral home. And that man did it for me. He got rid of it. And when they tore it down, we were really excited. When we started this project and started working on it, it was a very complicated project. My clients built this project in other countries, and it's a wonderful, beautiful thing, and you'll see it. But we started working with city staff and made a lot of headway. We complied with everything that they wanted. Your traffic engineer, John McWilliams at Kimley Horn, did an amazing job, and our traffic engineer, Joaquin, was working with him through this entire thing, and they worked out all of the difficulties that was encountered and complied with all of the things that he wanted. And we have here tonight someone from his office who is here, and if there's any question in that regard, we're happy to answer it. We also have the architect here who is ready to answer any questions you might have. One of the things I'd like to remind you about is that this building is going to house, of course, the hotel and the mall. The mall will have its own valet service. The hotel will have its own valet service. And if one needs help from the other, they have the ability of aiding one another, which I thought was a wonderful thing here and also a good thing to have in this type of atmosphere. The variance that we require of this, the conditional use that we require for this 11 feet is the result of having to build a mall that takes up almost 40 feet of the 120 feet in height, which leaves us about 80 feet to accomplish the construction of this hotel with rooms that are from 329 to 566 feet in size. And so we needed this extra 11 feet to get it accomplished, and that's why we're here in that regard. As far as the variances are concerned, the variances for the setbacks were required because if you look at this piece of property, which you will see in a few minutes, but I think it's in your packet, it's a very odd shape. It's almost a triangle. And the north side on 210th Street is much shorter than the south side, and so we had to put the building where we put it, resulting in no variances from Biscayne and only a variance from 209th Street. The other thing that was interesting is my client, when he bought this piece of property, also bought some magnificent live oak specimen trees. And although he was given the go-ahead to demolish all the trees and take them out, Joanne and Kathy O'Leary requested that we save as many of those that we could. And my client agreed, notwithstanding having paid for a permit to demolish it all, to move 4 of these live oaks from where they are to Biscayne Boulevard, and they are magnificent trees. We tried to give the city the rest of the trees and even offered to help move them, but unfortunately the city could not handle it, and so we had to demolish a few of them. One was a huge mahogany that couldn't be moved because it was just too big to be moved. So that's what we did when we worked on this project. We kind of made it our endeavor to do what the city wanted as much as possible, and that's what we've done. One of the last thing I'd like to tell you about is, although the signage on this video that you will see is not what would be acceptable to the city, it's what's on the building in Mexico. And we want you to know that the sign package that will be submitted will comply with the code, and there will be no requests for any changes. Jacoby, would you like to come up and run this, whatever it is?
Hello, how are you? Hello, Mayor, Vice Mayor.
You're going to have to hold the microphone up as well.
Now you can hear me? Yeah, better. Hello, thank you. Thank you for having me, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners, all the... So, yeah, thank you very much for everyone. Alan has been helping us with all this project. Also, Kevin and Joanne in the past almost 2 years now. We've been doing this project. So we really wanted to do, keep out this funeral home out of Aventura. It was really, sorry to tell, ugly, no? And build a nice project, a project that our neighbors in Aventura will be happy to have, will be happy to share with everyone, and I will present it to you. Well, this is a little bit more of the area. I think everyone knows the area, what's around. The project is located in 209th Street and 210th Street in Biscayne Boulevard. We demolished everything that was on the land. Now it's really all the land is ready to start development. These are some pictures from aerial pictures. Now we use this area for the parking for the Chabad. When there's a lot of parking, they ask us, instead of putting the cars at the street, so we park all the Chabad cars in this area. And this will be the project. The project is developed in, I will go to this render and then I go back. So the project is It's two-story of retail, mainly retail, not shops, really. It's more food and beverage, restaurants, high-end restaurants, casual dining restaurants, coffee shops, that will be all around to Biscayne in 209 and 210 Street. We will not have any access in the Biscayne Boulevard. We decided to pull all the access towards 209 Street. So we have 2 floors of retail. This is 52,000 foot of GLA of retail. Then we have the parking, 3 floors of parking on top. We are not going down on parking. We're going up on parking, 3 floors, approximately 360 parking spaces. And then we have the hotel Hyatt House Hotel. This is an extended stay hotel. As Alan told you, it's approximately 350 square foot to all the way through 700 square foot hotel rooms. The hotel, as you know, we're in front of a very important, a very nice hospital. So just crossing the street, you will have a hotel, and we have the mall is almost a mile from there, and also the new Chabad that just finished. They have a ballroom, and they have a lot of parties that will require to have a hotel next to them. No, so I'm sorry. This is another view from Biscayne Boulevard. This is the look and feel inside the mall. As I told you, it's not very big. It's small, and mainly food and beverage. That what we will focus on. All the restaurants will have their inside outside terrace. That's very important today with the COVID. When it's a good weather, you can open them in April, May. Summer, you will close, and winter for sure it will be closed. So this is a little bit of look and feel inside the mall. This is the drop-off in 209 Street. We will not have access by Biscayne. It's only by 209 Street. You will have self-service and valet parking, whatever really the customer wants. Another area of access. Yeah, this is the sky lobby. This is all the way up. So we are here in the 6th level. This is the sky lobby where we will have the pool of the hotel. It's not really it's not so big. The pool it's a decent size of pool. And inside we will have a restaurant in the hotel on top. This is where the lobby will be. And this is also look and feel inside the hotel rooms. And that's it. I don't know if anyone has any question.
Okay, thank you. Let me ask if any members of the commission have any questions, either for the applicant or for Mr. Klopp. Commissioner Shelley.
Yeah, Kevin, if I could.
Sir.
According to the letter we got from Mr. Rosenthal, there are 3 variances that we're being asked to approve.
Correct.
Okay, so in terms of the height, the parking, the square footages going from 10,000 to 150 some odd thousand, that's all in compliance already?
Correct.
Okay, so it's only these 3 that we're asking for?
The 3 variances, which is actually the next agenda item.
Right.
And the conditional use for the 11 feet.
The 11 feet?
Yeah, which is
Right,
the
but
current.
everything else is in compliance?
Correct.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there anyone from the public that would like to address the commission on this item? Seeing as there is not, I will close it to public comment and ask the city clerk for a roll call vote.
Commissioner Evans?
Yes.
Commissioner Friedland?
Yes.
Commissioner Landman?
Yes.
Commissioner Narodsky?
Yes.
Commissioner Shelley?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Dr. Marks?
Yes.
And Mayor Weissman?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much. I'm looking forward to seeing this project come to fruition, and everybody's invited to have a drink. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to ask the city attorney to please read the next ordinance.
Thank you, Mayor. Item 6B, resolution of the City Commission of the City of Aventura, Florida, granting variances requested by Central Aventura LLC from Section 31-144C5D of the City Code to permit a side yard setback of 10 feet where the City Code requires a 20-foot side yard setback. Section 31-171D2 of the City Code to permit 2 loading spaces where the City Code requires 4 loading spaces. And Section 31-144B4 to permit 2 12-foot wide overhead garage doors where the City Code permits a maximum 8-foot wide overhead garage door for the development of a mixed-use development with a hotel as well as retail and restaurant uses located at 20955 Biscayne Boulevard and providing for an effective date.
Can I please have a motion to approve the resolution? Made by Vice Mayor Dr. Linda Marks, seconded by Commissioner Landman. I'm going to request the Community Development Director, Kevin Klopp, to please present the staff report.
Thank you, Mayor. Very quickly, because obviously we've just heard about this, but this is the agenda item for the 3 variances. Again, for the record, for the property located at 20955 Biscayne Boulevard. Agenda item 6B, variances to permit a side yard setback of 10 feet where the city code requires a 20-foot side yard setback. That's on 209th Street. 2 loading spaces where the city code requires 4. That's really something that is up to them. They can make 2 loading spaces work for them. Great. And 2 12-foot wide overhead garage doors where the city code permits a maximum 8-foot wide overhead garage door. There are 7 standards for review for a variance. According to 3176E of City Code, the application, it says here meets all 5, it should say meets all 7. In summary, there are unique circumstances which create a hardship in meeting the code requirement, but the variance won't be detrimental to the public welfare or safety. Staff recommends the variances be approved subject to the conditions listed in the staff report and any subsequent additional conditions imposed during administrative site plan approval. And now I would like to take just a minute to talk about these variances from a long-term perspective. Attorney Rosenthal mentioned Joanne, who did all the work on this, did a great job. It is a wonderful project. The variances really are not consequential to the overall project that's going to occur. But what I'd like to say is that our code very much speaks to what we do not want, rather than telling what we do want. The code is rather static, where today's codes are more dynamic, more flexible. Our code is a little bit outdated. Our code unnecessarily focuses on uses and details of the site, rather than providing guidance and community vision. I think we can accomplish the same and better in an easier fashion. What I mean by that is, I don't know that so many variances, and not that there's a lot of variances, but it's a lot of work for something that the lion's share of is going to be approved administratively. As you mentioned, Commissioner Shelley, it meets the code. So I just wanted to take the example of a 12-foot wide garage door versus an 8-foot wide garage door. Why do we really care? Can a hotel really operate with an 8-foot wide garage door? So those are the types of things I think if we say, instead of focusing on how many loading bays they have and garage door size, we say we want 75% of the street frontage to be active and without crossing of vehicles. And then that gives an architect a lot of flexibility to say, oh, we need 12-foot garage doors, and they don't have to come back for a variance, and we still meet the intent of what the code wanted. So I think a lot of work went into this that Joanne did, and she was always focused on the work. But if we improve the code, it'll make it easier for us and for you and for the applicants. So that's just my way of saying we support these variances, but let's work together on amending the code in the future so we don't have to have them. Thank you.
Do the commissioners have any comments for Well, wait a minute. Let me ask if the applicant wants to speak to it.
Do you really want to hear me talk? You don't want to hear me say anything.
No.
I didn't think so. Thank you.
No,
very
it's okay. Do any members of the commission? Commissioner Narodsky.
I have a question for Mr. Klopp, if you could. We're obviously seeing a lot of development, a lot of these beautiful projects coming, but why are the setbacks in place? What would be the argument against approving this?
Setbacks are in place to create open space, to give some relief. But a lot of codes, and why I think we're suggesting approving this, a lot of codes now have build to lines instead of setback lines, where they require the building to be closer to the street, because that space you're creating is more of a suburban atmosphere to give an open feeling, whereas what you're starting to see in this area is more of an urban atmosphere where you want a relationship between the street and the building. You still want civic space, you still want landscaping, but you don't want that building set back and filled with cars in the front. You want that building up towards where the pedestrians are so they feel part of an urban community. So in this case, it's a variance because of the geometry of the parcel made it very hard to put a building on it without a setback variance. But from a staff perspective, from my perspective, I think it's a good idea to have that building forming the street. They talk about a room. A street is like a room where people need to feel comfortable and enclosed somewhat, still seeing the open sky, but also not feeling like they're just part of a street with cars on it, but they're more of a urban atmosphere in a community. Does that?
Was that sufficient? Of course you can.
I just want to get other people's opinions about this because we're changing the entire character of the city. Let's just be honest with all these projects, and I had a very productive meeting with Kevin, and I think there's so much merit to it, and it really is the way. I just want to get people's thoughts about if you have any personal feelings about just making things more city-like, and if there are concerns, because everything that we do, not this project in particular, but everything that we're discussing is all. At an earlier workshop, I was a little bit exaggerating and saying we're turning this into Brickell, but I mean, look at what we're doing, and I just want to get what people's feedback is. And I grew up in a city, and I'm used to urban environments and walking, and I was proud that I took the freebie here. So, in many ways, I'm really on board with it, but these are dramatic changes. We're putting this on, we're not putting it, you're having so much heavy stuff on Biscayne even now, you're getting a big hotel, all the redevelopment. I just wanted to hear what people's opinions are because we can't really discuss this outside of this. So I would just like to get people's thoughts.
Let me take a first shot and then I'll open it to any other commissioner. There's something I've learned in my life, and that's it doesn't matter whether it's Aventura, Florida, or any place in the world. Cities don't stand still. They either improve or they deteriorate. And we're looking at a building that has done very few changes in 27 years to our code. Let me just talk about residential on the boulevard, which has nothing to do really much with these projects. That is what is happening in every urban area in the country. So again, from the time I was elected, and it was with Bob, Denise, and you, we took a position that we wanted responsible development that would add value to our city. And I think it was you who brought to my attention that Park Square was absolutely amazing. The number of people that are there, the activity, it's like a real hub. And the one area you really don't have to go to the mall, you can still go and, enjoy it. So I think the proximity to it, you're right, a little bit of the city changes, but we have to change with the times. So that's my feeling. I will now, Denise? I'm sorry, Commissioner Landman.
Mark, I agree, and I see your point. I just, as a resident with a family, I love having these opportunities of going to the Park Square or going to, the shops or the restaurants. Like, I love the mixed-use developments. Now my husband and I, where should we go to dinner in Aventura? Before you had to venture out, you have all these options. I just feel like that's the right direction. I enjoy it. I take advantage of it. I know a lot of residents do, where you were maybe traveling to Wynwood or Midtown or this, you don't have to do that anymore. Like, things are coming to us, and I think that with the population that we have, people are really taking advantage of these restaurants, stores, amenities that you have locally. So I thoroughly enjoy it. I think it's us moving in the right direction. Obviously with development and with building, there comes a little bit more traffic. But as I was telling the city manager and Kevin, there is traffic everywhere. I mean, listen, anything we can do, freebie, anything we can do, Bright Line is coming. Like, we're trying. We're doing everything within our control to minimize the traffic, but it's just keeping people here and being able to enjoy what's available in our community. That's my opinion.
Commissioner Evans, and then Commissioner Shelley.
Yeah. Commissioner Landman just touched on one of the things I was going to point out. A lot of these projects, I think, are wonderful in themselves. I worry that the traffic is, at the moment, almost at a standstill some parts of the day. And when you adding and adding and adding more traffic to it, I'm not sure that we're analyzing this as well as we could. I really, I think you might get a lot of upset Aventura people not being able to move around much, to be perfectly honest. It's a dichotomy because you've got very nice projects with lots to offer, but they have to get out onto the street, and where on the street they go, etc., is I think, a problem that we need to look at in more detail, to be honest.
Commissioner Shelley.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, Commissioner Evans. I think Aventura suffers from inheritance problems, for a better term. Unfortunately, we inherited what the county gave to the land use usage. And in most of the majority of what we've approved here, it hasn't been much of a density issue as much as it's minor setback issues, a few feet of height. But the densities and the zonings pretty much have been pretty comparable to what was given to these developers when the county, or when we took back this property from the county. But, if you look back even 7 years ago and when some of us started, I remember there were projects that were brought to the commission that were turned down, that wanted retail downstairs and residential upstairs. There were all kinds of entertainment centers in the hospital district that was turned down. And if you look at Coral Gables, I think, as a perfect example of what you can do if you beautify an area, if you're considerate of the environment, and you're strongly held to your protocols and to your requirements of the aesthetic values. I do believe that what we're doing is bringing in a younger group into this community. It used to be the mall was the only thing we had at Aventura. Now what's happening is a lot of these places become self-sufficient within themselves in terms of the complexity and the diversity of what's being built in these areas. So I, for one, am very happy with it because now that we have the schools, you can go to school from kindergarten all the way up through high school, but more importantly, you need activities for these young families. And the fact that our average age is dropping and it's now in the mid to late 40s, that means you must have something, as Denise said, that we must keep the people in Aventura. We don't want them going to Fort Lauderdale. We don't want them to go into Coral Gables. We want them to stay right here. And I think Park Center has been the first thing that we've seen that has done that for us. So I think, as an example, what Mr. Davis is proposing to do in his community, what we're starting to see in the hospital district, I think all of these little pockets are going to become entertainment complexes, multi-purpose, multi-use projects, which will give so many more abilities to work with and enjoy Aventura. And I think that's what we're doing. We are literally changing a culture of a city and enhancing it. So what we've done is we've taken the city that was surrounding the golf course and the Aventura area, the mall, and we spread that out. And I think by doing that, I think we're enhancing livability here. People want to enjoy the life here. I mean, I talk to people that say Aventura is probably the greatest place in the world. In terms of what we have experienced in COVID, if there was any city that probably was a bubble of luxury during probably the worst times of our life, Aventura really has it, with the police force, with security, with schools, with education, and now with the diversity of construction and development and multi-use purposes of these projects. I think that's finally what we've needed. And I know, Kevin, and we met, we've had some meetings, as we all have, about doing something with these kind of changes. Like you said, who cares if it's 8 feet or 12 feet of a garage door? Well, it's time that we did become 21st century in terms of approval, so we get some of these exciting projects into our city. So I think what's happening now, Mark, to answer your question, was a very good question, and I think it's going to enhance our city and give it a lot of longevity, tax base, and a lot of progressive.
Vice Mayor Dr. Linda Marks.
So, Mark, I'm very supportive of mixed-use projects because I think it's the best way to live. You live, you work, you eat, you shop, everything in your own community. And it's a crazy world, and everybody's busy, 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 busy. This allows for a little bit of peace in terms of, accessibility. Where I see the issue is that I believe that the city, I think the projects have gotten away from the city. They're in their own cycle. They're spinning around out here. But the city has not gotten together, and I've actually asked our city manager to put this on the workshop agenda. We need a comprehensive lifestyle plan that goes beyond what we're doing in the medians, or whether we're doing drainage or whether we're doing flood control, but rather, what does the lifestyle of Aventura look like? So we're approving these projects, but the real question is, and it's almost a strategic planning type of thing, Mayor, what's our ultimate goal? What do we want Aventura to look like? And then if that's what we want it to look like, then how do we back it up and fit in all the puzzle pieces? And I think one of the things that we're missing the most is this actual lifestyle piece, whether it is moving from the way we handle parks and recreation. Maybe we have to be more creative. Maybe we need more parks and recreation. Whether it is events that we put on, maybe we have to move forward and add more events. But we are not, we're like a bunch of little cogs in, different, the clock is not going around. All the little pieces are not working together. So I'm very anxious for us at a workshop to have a discussion. What do we want this city to look like beyond bricks and mortar? But to answer the specific question, I think that these mixed-use projects are the best way to go. I think that it's backwards thinking to limit, this can only be an office building, or this can only be a shopping mall, or whatever. So that's just, I think there's another piece that we absolutely have to address. And it's not to say, and I want to make sure I say this publicly, this has nothing to do with any employee who works in our city. This has to do with visioning for the future, because sometimes you get into a rut where you just approve whatever's put before you instead of honestly thinking ahead.
Commissioner Narotsky.
No, I really appreciate it, because normally, and I guess I'm so old school that I remember when we used to sit upstairs and have this round table. So I appreciate everyone's input, which I wanted to hear. So thanks.
And I have asked the city manager to please bring this to workshops so we have the ability to discuss it like we're doing here in the normal format that we did prior to COVID. So I think that you will see this. Is your hand up, Commissioner? Okay, you're recognized. Commissioner Friedland.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to, I know that we've discussed the mixed-use project, and I'm in favor of the mixed-use project. What I'm concerned about today is the variance in the 10 feet and the 2 bays, and I want to see if it's something we need to table for a workshop. But I understand you're saying 2 bays of a larger opening are sufficient. I'm now concerned about the traffic that if you only have 2 bays instead of 4, don't we line up other trucks on the streets, not giving space for more trucks? I mean, that's what I would understand. The bay doors are 4. It's not whether they're just big enough. Even if the doors are bigger, it's a larger truck. It doesn't mean the same number. Now we have a big hotel, we have a big retail, we have restaurants. How is 2 bays going to be enough so that the street doesn't become more congested?
I'm not sure. I guess you're addressing that to Mr. Klopp?
Yes.
Who said, I believe there were traffic studies done. So perhaps you can address it.
Yes, and I would offer for the applicant to answer the question as well. Most deliveries these days are scheduled specifically to accommodate this type of situation. They know what their capacity is. They know the time that is going to be easy for them to get in and out, 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, that type of thing. And so it will be management really of the facility that will prevent what the commissioner is concerned about, rather than the geometry of it. And there simply will not be trucks allowed to queue in the right-of-way. If there is an occasional problem where 2 bays are filled and another truck is there, they're going to have to move on and come back later. That's just going to be the management of it, but 2 should be sufficient if they schedule and coordinate properly.
Thank you, thank you. I have a quick question for the applicant. You mentioned that there would be lots, that the bottom floors are going to be mostly restaurants and food dining establishments. My question is simply, do you have any tenants lined up?
Sorry. Yeah, we're working with some tenants. Again, they're fine dining restaurants. I'm not allowed to, you know,
okay.
But yeah, we're working with some nice tenants. And just very important thing is that all around 209, 210th Street and Biscayne, mainly you will have all the terraces of the restaurants. So you will not have a big wall or of a 60-story building like Brickell, or no. You have nice terraces and nice restaurants, no?
Vice Mayor Dr. Linda Marks, then Commissioner Shelley. Okay.
I just have to say one more thing, I think, which all of us know, and that is to build anything today, the cost of everything is so enormous. The cost of labor, the cost of building materials. That's why things have to get taller and wider and more dense. And I think as a commission, we understand that that's just a fact of life, which is why it's 2 bays instead of 4 bays and so on and so forth. What we have to just be cognizant about is to make sure that while we balance that item, which is absolutely factual, we just have to make sure that we don't go too far over the edge. But, you know, we just remember to balance. But that's why we have to approve higher, wider, taller.
Thank you very much. Let me now open this to any public comment. Is there anyone in the public that would like to address this project? Seeing as there are none, I'm going to close the item for public comment, and I'm going to ask the clerk for a roll call vote.
Commissioner Evans?
Yes.
Commissioner Friedland?
No.
Commissioner Landman?
Yes.
Commissioner Narosky?
No.
Commissioner Shelley?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Dr. Marks?
Yes.
And Mayor Weissman?
Yes.
The motion passes 5-2.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda is item 7, and it's ordinance first reading. I'm going to request the city attorney to please read the first ordinance, item 7A.
Thank you, Mayor. An ordinance of the City of Aventura, Florida, amending Article 7, Code of Ethics of Chapter 2, Administration of the City Code to implement the recent amendment of City Charter Section 7.03B, providing for enhanced ethics provisions, providing for severability, providing for inclusion in code, and providing for an effective date.
Can I please ask for a motion for approval of the ordinance? Made by Commissioner Shelley, seconded by Commissioner Landman. I'm going to request the city manager to review this item.
Thank you, Mayor. Earlier, the Charter Revision Commission was impaneled by our city Aventura Commission to review the code and ordinances, and the charter of Aventura. This revision committee or commission is impaneled roughly every 5 years. Now it's going to be 6 years. They look at the charter and make recommendations. One of the recommendations they made is before you now. There was a special election that was held, and the community voted to support the recommendation from the Revision Commission. And it deals with if you are a sitting member of the Aventura Commission and you're serving in a capacity on a board where you live, a HOA or a condo board, and for some reason there's litigation brought against the city, it would require that person to step down from the board on which they serve outside of their commission duties.
Thank you. I'm going to ask if any members of the commission have any questions or comments. Seeing as there are none, I'm going to open the item for public comment. Anyone from the public have any questions or comments for the commission? Okay, seeing as there are none, I'm going to close the item for public comment and ask the city clerk for a roll call vote.
Commissioner Evans?
Yes.
Commissioner Friedland?
Yes.
Commissioner Landman?
Yes.
Commissioner Narodsky?
Yes.
Commissioner Shelley?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Dr. Marks?
Yes.
And Mayor Weissman?
Yes.
Motion passes on first reading.
Thank you. I'm going to request the city attorney to read the second ordinance, item 7B.
Thank you, Mayor. An ordinance of the City of Aventura, Florida, amending Chapter 31, Land Development Regulations of the City Code of Ordinances by amending Section 31-145, Town Center Zoning Districts, to provide for a new zoning district, Town Center Office Park Mixed Use, TC4 District, providing for severability, providing for inclusion in the code, and providing for an effective date.
Mr. Attorney, this is what we passed during the local planning agency meeting, correct?
That's correct, Mayor, and the input and staff report that was submitted at that time is incorporated into the record of this proceeding. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Can I please have a motion for approval of this ordinance? Made by Commissioner Evans, seconded by Commissioner Shelley. I'm going to request the community, you're busy tonight, Kevin. Kevin Klopp to review the item with us.
At your pleasure. It is submitted what I presented earlier. Happy to answer any other questions or present if necessary once again.
Does anyone have any questions? Again, we reviewed it during the local planning agency meeting. I don't see any. I'm going to ask if there's any comment. I don't see any, so I'm going to close it for public comment, and I'm going to ask the city clerk for a roll call vote.
Commissioner Evans?
Yes.
Commissioner Friedland?
Yes.
Commissioner Landman?
Yes.
Commissioner Narodsky?
Yes.
Commissioner Shelley?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Dr. Marks?
Yes.
And Mayor Weissman?
Yes.
The motion passes on first reading.
Thank you. And thank you, guys. Thank you. It brings us to item number 8, ordinances on second reading, and tonight we have none. So we go to number 9, resolutions and public hearing, and I'm going to ask the city attorney to please read the resolution.
Thank you, Mayor. A resolution of the City Commission of the City of Aventura, Florida, accepting and adopting in principle, subject to annual revision and authorization, the City of Aventura Capital Improvement Program document for fiscal year 2021-2022 to 2025-2026, authorizing the city manager to do all things necessary to carry out the aims of this resolution and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. Can I please have a motion for approval of this resolution? Made by Commissioner Shelley, seconded by Commissioner Narodsky. I'm going to request the city manager to please review the item.
Thank you, Mayor. As you know, the CIP, or the Capital Improvement Plan, is a document that we use. It's a 5-year plan that we use to forecast and look to the future for building, replacing equipment, and doing capital projects, and basically also figuring out how to pay for it. All budget preparations in this particular capital improvement plan was done using very conservative figures, revenues, and projections going out into the future. It's a guide, as I said. It allows us to look, as I said, to the future, and it also allows us to take in emergencies, things that come out of the ordinary that we can deal with. The first year of the plan, however, is one of the most important years because that's the one that ties directly to the operating budget that you will see very shortly in the future. This year, we plan on spending approximately $2,501,359 to work on transportation, street replacement, stormwater drains, such as replacing on 213th Street or Yachtway Drive, a lot of curbing and drainage improvements in that area. We also buy equipment for the police department and various other departments, and basically to keep the city operating and running at full efficiency.
Thank you. I'm going to ask if any member of the commission has any questions or comments. Okay, I'm going to open it for public comment. Does anyone wish to address the city? I'm going to close it for public comment, and I'm going to ask the city clerk for a roll call vote.
Commissioner Evans?
Yes.
Commissioner Friedland?
Yes.
Commissioner Landman?
Yes.
Commissioner Narodsky?
Yes.
Commissioner Shelley?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Dr. Marks?
Yes.
And Mayor Weissman?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. The next item is reports, and I'm going to make a special request to ask our city manager to please talk about what this city has done for our city in response to the tragedy in Surfside, what our efforts have been, and what we are hoping to do, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Just as an update for what we did after the Surfside tragedy, the city went into action and started to review all of our buildings that were over 40 years old and over 5 stories high. We were looking at their certification reports and making sure that they were up to date and that they were doing everything they were supposed to in order to make sure their buildings were structurally sound and the residents were safe. We did that by having our structural engineers, building inspectors go out and visit every building, whether they were certified or not. They visited those buildings to make sure that there was nothing extremely dangerous or to the residents or worse. Any buildings that were found not in compliance, there were buildings that were late in applying for their certifications. They were all given notice and time now to respond back to the city to make sure that they start following the proper rules and procedures that they're supposed to. They have approximately anywhere from 60 to 90 days to respond back, and we will be following that up with our personnel in the department. Another thing we're doing, as you can imagine, we started to receive numerous calls from our community, the residents, about things in their buildings that they thought were unsafe, such as a crack in the ceiling, maybe they saw a crack in on the floor, in a garage, some spalling, anything that they thought was dangerous. We have been taking the steps to respond personally and literally to every one of those residents' calls. Most times we can set their minds at ease and let them know a little bit more about what they're looking at. We have had a couple of cases where it was recommended by the building official that the building actually go out and get an engineer's report to better detail what it was we were looking at and any plan of action that they would take to fix that item. Also, we are adding some staff to our personnel, particularly in the area of inspections. We've added a code inspector, also an administrative clerk to help with the processing of the additional work now on these 40 and 50-year certifications, as well as we've added or changed a part-time. We have a full-time code officer and a part-time. We've now increased it to 2 full-time code officers to go out and also assist while we get these buildings up to speed. Thankfully, things have been going very well. The buildings have been very cooperative. Their building engineers are working with us. And I would say if there was a fault to be had. Most of the time, the building department and the people there over the years work very closely with our condo boards and try to help them and assist them in getting things done. Going forward, we're going to be a little less tolerant of when people say they need more time. Unless they're making an honest effort to comply, we'll be moving more aggressively in those cases. Thankfully, we don't have too many of those. Lastly, I'd like to just mention, before I spoke about Kimberly Merchant and our Community Services Department, I'd like to also thank our Police Department, who was called out very early and responded to assist with traffic control and security, and over the last several weeks have been down there quite often. One of the Sergeant Frieda was able to secure some additional equipment, that particularly the N95 masks, which were given out to emergency personnel down there. As you can imagine, the need for that to help in that area. Kimberly and the Community Services were also asked by Surfside to help them relocate their campers, their summer campers. There was approximately 70 children that were going to be using their community center, which basically became a standby center for families and people who had loved ones that were lost. So she worked with their people in Miami-Dade to relocate these children over to Bay Harbor Islands in the Ruth K. Broad School, which was really no one knows about that, but that's the kind of stuff that was being done. And lastly, I know Joe Kroll, who's sitting in the back there, while not really being asked to do much at Surfside, he is a former Surfside employee, went there and has been helping some of their people, deal with some of the fallout and, just some of the emotional damage that comes with working closely in a tragedy like that. And unfortunately, I have some experience with that, so I know how that can be. So that's what basically we've been doing so far.
Okay, thank you very, very much. I too want to echo the city manager. I want to thank Joe Kroll. If you've driven on Country Club Drive during these torrential rains, you will know that we do not have floods. They drain within, it seems like 20 minutes. The job you've done is amazing for the city. I want to thank the chief. I want to thank Major Bentelia and every one of your police officers. We can't thank you enough for always stepping up to the plate, and your whole department. And Kevin, you've been instrumental in the work that we've done to assist with Surfside, so I deeply thank you. Anybody else reports? We're on reports.
Yeah, if this is inappropriate, I don't know the
You're
procedure.
fine.
You don't know. Well, you could say something. I just want to change my vote on the earlier thing. Is that possible?
I believe so with the attorney.
Which item was that?
On 6A, I want to reflect that I vote no.
All right, you can have that changed in the record. The record will reflect that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
He does that by preparing a written document and submits it to you or to the city manager? To the city manager?
The city clerk will note that into the record.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, I just like the record to be A and B, that I voted no on both
I
of
just
them.
want to clarify for the record, the item is for 6B. So then the motion passes 6-1.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Then I'm going to open the meeting for public comment, and I'm going to request the attorney review with the commission members the purpose of this item.
Thank you, Mayor. This portion of the agenda, in accordance with the City Commission rules, is for the City Commission to receive comments and input from members of the public. However, under the Commission rules, the Commission does not respond back or engage in discussion on the item. Instead, the Commission simply listens and receives input. If any follow-up action is necessary, the City Manager, as he always does, will follow up with the individual resident or person involved. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm opening up the floor for a public comment. Is there anyone here that would like to address the commission? Okay, I'm going to close the item for public comment, and as there is no other business to be brought before this body tonight, I'm going to ask for a motion to adjourn. made by Vice Mayor Dr. Linda Marks. Can I have a second, please? Second by Commissioner Landman. Anybody opposed? The meeting is officially adjourned.